Okay, and welcome to the next video. Today I've got a new topic which is actually going to help us out considerably. Okay, so that's the one positive thing. So for once, we're going to give you something that actually helps reduce your workload. Okay, what I've got is I've got the same setup that I just had a few minutes ago with my web servers and the DNS server off to a bunch of different places. And of course, in order to make this computer right here work, there was a handful of things that needed to be done. And in order to demonstrate this, let me grab a brand new one and let me plug it into the network over here at the college. Okay, so here we go. We plug this in anywhere at all. And of course, well, in theory, you'd be able to work. So you start off and you say, well, fine, let's open this up and let's start hitting these things. Ping. 200.1.1.2, and of course absolutely nothing works. Why? Well, I hope that you've been through enough stuff already. You're probably yelling at me saying, hey, no. There's a bunch of stuff that needs to be set inside here called the IP configuration. So what needs to be set? Well, number one, I need to pick an IP address that has not already been used, and it has to be of the right form. It has to be something on 212.77.217 dot something that has not been used. I also need to set up a subnet mask, which should be the 255.255.255.0 because we're dealing with a Class C network. But remember, it needs to be done. I also need to set up this default gateway, which would be the router 212.77.217.1, and I also need to set up this thing called a DNS server so that I can find things like supercourse.com without having to type in the IP address of the server. Okay, so I've got a whole bunch of things that need to be done. Now, this is all right because it's just one computer, but can you imagine if you had a classroom full of computers? You had 25 computers in one place. Would you want to have to go through and set up all of those things over and over and over again? And of course, the answer is no, you don't want to do that type of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up one final computer, then we're going to make use of something. Okay, over here, I'm going to grab yet another server. Now, once again, I could take all of these servers and combine them all together into one, but I thought I would leave these as completely separate things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this the DHCP server. So what on earth is DHCP? It stands for Dynamic Host Control Protocol. Okay, so it does a whole bunch of things. One of the things that it does is it will look after managing a lot of stuff on your network for you, in particular a bunch of computers. All right, let me go into its configuration, and there's a couple things I have to do. Number one, I have to set up the IP address at least one more time for this. So let's use 212.77.217.3. Okay, and I haven't used that on anything else, so that's important. Let me set up 212.77.217.1 as the default gateway, and I'll even set up the DNS server using this. So at least now I can refer to, oops, there we go, so at least I can refer to names if I wanted to, but I'm not going to here. All right, that's one thing. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in your services and I'm going to turn off HTTP because that's not what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in DNS, so I'm going to leave that off, but I am interested in this thing right here called DHCP. Okay, so first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this thing on. Okay, so this is now going to start serving up dynamic addresses. What do I mean by dynamic addresses? Addresses that are automatically handed out according to the computers. Okay, so the way how this works, it's a little bit to get set up. We're not going to worry about a lot of things in here, but I'm just going to pick out a few interesting things. First of all, what is the gateway that should go out for all of the computers that join my network? Well, we know that the gateway is 212.77.217.1. Okay, is there a DNS server on my network? Yes, there is. It's at 212.77.217.2. All right, and what addresses would I like to give? Well, if you take a look at my network, 20 looks like a normal computer. These really high numbers seem to be like servers. These really low numbers are also like servers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start handing out addresses starting from 100. Okay, subnet mask. Well, this is a subnet mask that I want. And how many different computers? Well, let's make it 50. Okay, let's make it 50. I'm going to leave this one alone. That's nothing to do with this course. And I'm going to hit save, and hopefully this ends up producing all of the right stuff. I could certainly look and make sure that these got set up correctly. So the gateway is the point 1, the DNS server is point 2, starting at point 100. Subnet mask is this, and there will be 50 of these things handed out. Okay, now here is what we're going to do. When we get a brand new computer that we put onto our network, I'm going to go over here, and rather than setting up all of these things independently, I'm going to, instead of using static, I'm going to switch on this thing called DHCP. And you'll see what happens when I put this on. You saw it said for a second requesting address, and here's what it came back with. So the DHCP server said, well, here's an address. Please use 212.77.217.100 with this subnet mask, this gateway, and this DNS server. And of course, the cool thing is, now that I've gotten all that data, I didn't need to know anything about the network. I can now just go off and I can browse supercourse.com directly. And oh, did I end up removing my supercourse? I think I may have removed it from my DNS server. That's exactly what I did. Sorry about that. Supercourse.com is really 200.1.2. Okay, here we go. Put that back in, and let me go over here and let's try reloading the page. Okay, here we go, and that's the supercourse. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't quite have my network configured. Now, the cool thing is, now that I've done this once, take a look what I can do. I can just go and I can take another PC, plug it into the switch, and all that I need to do is to go to the IP config and say, okay, give me a DHCP address, and what will happen is it will hit the server, the DHCP server, and the DHCP server comes back with something else. Now, this one here says that the DHCP failed, and it's used this thing called APIPA. This is kind of a default. Because it didn't work, it ended up just kind of making up its own IP address, which will end up not functioning. And the reason why it couldn't work, you see that there was an orange dot there a second ago? That's because the network address was set up the switch was set up to block all requests. So that was, again, to make sure I haven't plugged a switch in. But now that it's been turned green, what I will do is I will turn it back and I'll put back to DHCP. And if you take a look, now it picked up the address 101. Okay, all of the other things are set up correctly. But because it's now being configured correctly, I should be able to go off to see Supercourse, which now my DNS entry works, and voila, now I've got another computer that I just added. Okay, good. Can I add more computers? Yeah, absolutely. You just simply plug another computer into the switch. Okay, here we go. Bring another brand new computer from somewhere, plug it in, and well, we already learned our lesson last time. You have to wait for this to turn green. So let me hit fast forward time so it turns green first. And then I will go in here to my desktop with ipconfig and say DHCP. And now I've picked up 102. And guess what's going to happen? These numbers are going to continue to go up. So the next one will probably be 103, then 104, 105, and so on. And everything will continue to grow until it hits 50 computers, at which point then it will end up failing because there will be nothing left. Okay, now I've got two things that I want to do that I'm going to have to set up because I need to make this a little bit more complex because I need to set up an exercise for you. So it's a fairly short lab exercise today, but I'm about to throw a pretty big curve in for you. Okay, so give me a minute while I set up this so you know exactly what it is that I'm going to expect to give you. Then I will tell you that the video is finished and you can go off and actually solve this lab problem and submit that one. So give me a couple minutes to get set up. Okay, and I'm back with your lab exercise. Okay, so this one, once again, is a bit of a challenge. It's not quite as much of a challenge as the big world network routing problem that I gave you, but there's a bit of a trick to this one, so I'm not even going to provide you a hint about the trick. Okay, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to construct this network right here. Okay, so it's got 3 computers on the left-hand side with a switch, and it's got 2 computers on the right-hand side with a switch. I mean, you can certainly add more computers if you want. That's no problem. The router in the middle, just one of those simple 1841 routers, I want one side to be 192.168.10.1, the other can be 192.168.12.1, of course, slash 24 in each of these, so just the regular subnet type things that we're talking about. And of course, what I want you to do is I don't want you to have to go in and do configuration. So notice that there's no DNS server here. Okay, so you don't need that one, but you definitely require the default gateway, and you definitely require the DHCP server, and you will require an IP address. Okay, now in order to make these things a little bit more call it flexible, give you a little bit of direction for DHCP. Use the range 100 to 200. Okay, so in other words, guess what? 192.168.10.100. 101, 102, 103, and so on, so that if you put things in. Okay, and I want you to set up DHCP to hand out the addresses on the computers, and I'm talking about all of them. Okay, and of course, the idea is that if you take one of these computers and you go to the desktop and you go to the config and you say DHCP, it should request an address, and you should get an address which is on the correct network with the correct subnet mask. These are not, by the way, with the correct gateway. But the DNS server is completely irrelevant, so you don't need this because there won't be any names. If you want to, you can certainly include it. Okay, so that is your exercise for today. As I say, there's one kind of surprise thing. I suspect I'll actually see questions by email or on D2L, at which point I will provide you with at least a small hint, but it has something to do with the idea of broadcasting. Okay, what did I say in the section when we learned about the 255 broadcast address? Something really important having to do with this thing right here in broadcasting. So that's the only hint that I'm going to provide. Okay, so when you're finished, of course, upload this to D2L Dropbox for the week, and that is going to be the end of the stuff that we cover for this particular week, unless there's more things that we end up seeing. Okay, so once again, just as a reminder, there will of course be quizzes that you will have to go in and complete, and if there's additional resources like extra labs and so on, and those other packet tracer files that we put, if we put them onto D2L, by all means complete the exercises, but the things that are inside these videos are the things we're really looking for. Okay, all right, so good luck with this one, and we'll catch you next week with the next set of videos.